Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Self-Development with Tactics podcast. Today, we are once again going to go through 18 wealth lessons from The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Yeah, now I know. And we are going ahead with number 13, which is room for error. The last time, so yesterday, we went through surprise, and also reasonable or rational, I think, and maybe even save money, but I'm actually not that sure. Anyway, today we are going ahead with number 13. We are probably not going to finish it up today, but maybe the next time. So there is a bit of fun left for us, for me, for whomever, I don't know. Margin of safety, you can also call it room for error or redundance, is the only effective way to safely navigate a world that is governed by odds, not certainties. And almost everything related to money exists in that kind of world. Completely the case, It is really all about odds and possibilities and chances, nothing is really certain. Of course, sometimes there's a certain possibility, and or chance of 99.9%. But guess what? There's still room for error. This 1%, it might fuck you up just because. And it is what it is, you can't do that much about that. You just have to live with it and try to mitigate the risks as much as you possibly can. It is what it is, I'd like to change certain things. Everyone would like to change certain things, but we just can't. And whatever. Worship room for error. A gap between what could happen in the future and what you need to happen. And what you need to happen in the future in order to do well is what gives you endurance, and endurance is what makes compounding magic over time. The most important part of every plan is planning on your plan not going according to plan. There is never a moment where you're so right that you can't bet every chip in front of you. The world isn't that kind to anyone, not consistently anyways. You have to give yourself room for error. You have to plan on your plan not going according to plan. Well, I do indeed like really mitigating chances of things going wrong. And I actually always kind of do that, especially when it comes to me willing to be at a certain place at a certain time, If I want to be there, I really make sure that it is going to be fine. Most often I'm just being there just way too early, but I'm always kind of trying to make sure that I'm going to be there no matter what, And most often I'm actually also there at this specific time. I wanted to be there. History is littered with good ideas taken too far, which are indistinguishable from bad ideas. The wisdom in having room for error is acknowledging that uncertainty, randomness, and chance, or unknowns, are an ever-present part of life. The only way to deal with them is by increasing the gap between what you think will happen and what can happen, while still leaving you capable of fighting another day. For whatever reason, my mouth is just so incredibly dry. Like strangely dry. I mean, I've been consuming quite a ton of caffeine today. Well, actually not that much, but also some green tea, which I normally do not do. So maybe it's been due to that. I don't know. Might have to look that up. 2 things cause us to avoid room for error. One is the idea that somebody must know what the future holds, driven by the uncomfortable feeling that comes from admitting the opposite. The second is that you're therefore doing yourself harm by not taking actions that fully exploit an accurate view of that future coming true. If there is one way to guard against that damage, it's avoiding single points of failure. A good rule of thumb for a lot of things in life is that everything that can break will eventually break. So if many things rely on one thing working and that one thing breaks, you are counting the days to catastrophe. That is a single point of failure. The biggest single point of failure with money is a sole reliance on a paycheck to fund short-term spending needs, with no savings to create a gap between what you think your expenses are and what they might be in the future. And that is 100% the case, because the problem is sometimes that there are going to be unexpected expenses. Maybe something breaks, maybe even something really big like your house, maybe there's a storm, maybe your roof is fucked, whatever the fuck might be. Things just happen, and things can just happen. Of course, there's also insurance, which might as well be a plan to mitigate risks and mitigate surprising events. But I have a really good feeling and strong feeling that not a lot of people have a lot of savings for certain things like, okay, I'm gonna lose my job. Period. Not a lot of people are saving for that and or have saved for that. The 14th, you'll change. Long-term planning is harder than it seems because people's goals and desires change over time. An underpinning of psychology is that people are poor forecasters of their future selves. Imagining a goal is easy and fun. Imagining a goal in the context of the realistic life stresses that grow with competitive pursuits is something entirely different. This has a big impact on our ability to plan for future financial goals. The end of history illusion is what psychologists call the tendency for people to be keenly aware of how much they have changed in the past, but to underestimate how much their personalities, desires, and goals are likely to change in the future. Also, I think there is, I don't know if this is a real fact or a real effect or affect or whatever, but people tend to really be optimistic about the future. Like, tomorrow I'm gonna stop smoking. And they really fucking believe in that. And I know it myself, not in terms of smoking, but in terms of other things. And I've also thought about it in the same fucking way as well. But it is fucking dumb, because I might have said that yesterday as well. And today, have I stopped smoking? Well, probably not. Unfortunately, Of course, I don't really want to be pessimistic here, but more or less just seeing facts and just, trying to underline facts. Anyway, we should avoid the extreme ends of financial planning. Assuming you'll be happy with a very low income or choosing to work endless hours in pursuit of a high one increases the odds that you'll one day find yourself at a point of regret. We should also come to accept the reality of changing our minds. I think this is a really great point. It makes sense also to put yourself into a space, into a position in the future in which you're going to be happy. And you are also going to have options from this point on as well. Of course, you can build yourself a future, you can build yourself a plan for the future that is going to really put you into a very, very tight space. A very tight space in which you really have to function in a certain way. And if you're not doing so, everything is fucked up. And this is not a great place to be in. This is a place of high stress. This is a place of, maybe even high income. Could be the case, maybe, hopefully, whatever. But there's going to be such a lot of drawbacks. There's going to be such a lot of things that you are going to hate about your fucking daily life, that this is definitely not worth it. So it really does make sense to make sure that you're going to have certain options in the future as well, so that you can pick and choose and just change things. Because, as the author pointed out, we change our opinions, whether it is actually the opinion about the whole thing, the whole plan that we made, or it is something minor like, okay, I on one day or on Friday I don't want to work 10 hours, but I rather want to just work 5 hours. Of course, the return is going to be a difference, but if I have space in this plan to do so, financial wise, whatever wise, but probably financial wise, then it is fine. But if there's no space, like, okay, if I'm not doing so, or if I do so, but on other days I just have to work 12 hours instead of the 10, well, it puts you into a very, very difficult space. And I think this is not worth it. Also, at my point of view, one really has to evaluate and re-evaluate from time to time, and actually quite often, whether certain goals or certain things make sense for you or for this person quite. Like, do I really want to have an income of 100k, or could I just go ahead with less income? Would I be fine with less income? And you probably would be. I would argue, it really depends on your spending, really depends on the lifestyle that you are willing to live. But yeah, we should also come to accept the reality of changing our minds. It is what it is. And we should also accept way more realities. The reality of one day you're just not gonna feel good. The reality of you one day just feeling really good. The reality that some days are just gonna be complete BS and shit. It is what it is. It is life. Life happens. Of course, it really makes sense as well to try to mitigate these things, by having certain plans, by having certain daily routines, by having a certain quote-unquote mindset. I hate that word so much, but in the end, it is what I'm referring to, and everybody knows what I'm referring to and what I mean by saying mindset. But still, it is so overused and I just hate it. Anyway, the 15th one is nothing's free. Everything has a price, but not all prices appear on labels. Everything has a price, and the key to a lot of things with money is just figuring out what the price is and being willing to pay it. Well, there's actually, there was a great example. Like, if you want to have that really great car, you could rent it, which is in the end going to be just way, 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 way more cost effective. And, well, I don't know if it is going to be cheaper, but more cost effective, because throughout certain times of the year, you might just not be able to drive it because of weather conditions, because of street conditions, because of whatever. And then doing it in this way might just leave you or let you leave with a bit more money than before, than compared to buying the car, or buying that helicopter, or buying that jet, whatever it might be. If you're Googling for like jet renting example or something like this, you might probably be able to find it. But yeah, the problem is that the price of a lot of things is not obvious until you've experienced them firsthand when the bill is overdue, which I think is also one of the reasons why trying to make as many experiences as you can in your life is a really good thing, especially when it is about your youth, I would argue, because you're going to be able to get around certain things in your future life a bit better, I would say. Most things are harder in practice than they are in theory. Sometimes this is because we are overconfident. More often it's because we're not good at identifying what the price of success is, which prevents us from being able to pay it. Like everything else worthwhile, successful investing demands a price, but its currency is not dollars and cents, it's volatility, fear, doubt, uncertainty, and regret, all of which are easy to overlook until you're dealing with them in real life. The question is, why do so many people who are willing to pay the price of cars, houses, food, and vacations try so hard to avoid paying the price of good investment returns? The answer is simple. The price of investing success is not immediately obvious. It is not a price tag you can see. So when a bill comes due, it doesn't feel like a fee for getting something good. It feels like a fine for doing something wrong. And while people are generally fine with paying fees, fines are supposed to be avoided. You're supposed to make decisions that preempt and avoid fines. It sounds trivial, but thinking of market volatility as a fee rather than a fine is an important part of developing the kind of mindset that lets you stick around long enough for investing gains to work in your favor, which is probably going to be about compound interest. Market returns are never free and never will be. They demand you pay a price like any other product. The trick is convincing yourself that the market's fee is worth it. That is the only way to properly deal with volatility and uncertainty. Not just putting up with it, but realizing that it's an admission fee worth paying. There is no guarantee that it will be. Define the cost of success and be ready to pay for it, because nothing worthwhile is free. And I would also say that that price might just be not going on a certain vacation with your family or with your buddies, but having to work. This cost might be you having to stick to a certain diet and not being able to, quote unquote, experience certain tastes of certain very highly compatible foods, highly processed foods. Whether this is something that you can deal with or want to deal with heavily depends on you as a person, your goals, your values, and just way, 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 way more other things. The 16th one, you and me. Beware taking financial cues from people playing a different game than you are. An idea exists in finance that seems innocent but has done incalculable damage. It is the notion that assets have no rational price in a world where investors have different goals and time horizons. Bubbles form when the momentum of short-term returns attracts enough money that the makeup of investors shifts from mostly long-term to mostly short-term. The formation of bubbles isn't so much about people irrationally participating in long-term investing, they are about people somewhat rationally moving towards short-term trading to capture momentum that had been feeding on itself. It's hard to grasp that other investors have different goals than we do because an anchor of psychology is not realizing that rational people can see the world through a different lens than your own. Rising prices persuade, I think, all investors in ways the best markets envy. They are a drug that can turn value-conscious investors into dewy-eyed optimists, detached from their own reality but the actions of someone playing a different game than they are. The takeaway here is that few things matter more with money than understanding your own time horizon and not being persuaded by the actions and behaviors of people playing different games than you are. And potentially and probably also people that are in a different, in brackets, financial situation than you are. The main thing I can recommend is going out of your way to identify what game you are playing. Smart, informed, and reasonable people can disagree in finance because people have vastly different goals and desires. There is no single right answer, just the answer that works for you. And this was a very important note for me. Also because I tend to really stick to certain opinions of certain people, actually one person in mind. And the problem is I am in a completely different position. Financially, personally, and whatnot. So it's difficult then to stick to that opinion, decision, whatever it just might be. Period. But yeah, I'm gonna end the episode there. I wish you the best and hopefully see you soon. Bye bye.